Yeah, I don't know, I had pretty strong ideas about Jack, of what he would be, you know, the ingredients that would go into Jack. It was a great opportunity to invent a different kind of pirate, you know, a pirate you haven't seen before.
Son, I'm Captain Jack Sparrow. Savvy?
Jack Sparrow kind of came to life as I was reading the screenplay, you know, I was reading the script in the sauna. The heat was very important for me, you know, the idea of, yeah, sweltering heat, and the heat that we put into our own brain just from obsessing or thinking, you know, about one thing.
Action. What's the nature of this venture of yours?
I'm going after the Black Pearl. I know where it's going to be, and I'm going to take it.
I think to some degree he's got perpetual sea legs, you know, just from being on the water too much. So land becomes really odd and uncomfortable.
Me?
You're supposed to be dead.
Am I not?
Jack Sparrow is a real rogue. He's a fun-loving, hard-living individual who has actually morals. I mean, he knows right from wrong, even though he doesn't quite adhere to it all the time.
Giselle!
Who was she?
What? I may have deserved that.
Johnny could be a straight-up leading man if he wanted to, and he just doesn't have that desire. I mean, he's much more into the craft, and he's much more into exploring different, you know, avenues for his acting. And this is, you know, I mean, come on, it's Captain Jack Sparrow. It's the perfect opportunity to go someplace.
This is the day that you will always remember as the day that you...
You know, he'd always kind of talked about sort of the Keith Richards aspect of this character.
One of my great heroes, and a guy who I think is maybe the most together human being I've ever seen or met, is Keith Richards.
I swear you look just like him.
So you take something as solid as that, and you combine it with, say, like Pepe Le Pew, you know, the cartoon character.
But if we're gonna do the thing that puts that scene in jeopardy,
I felt very strongly that he would, yeah, resemble kind of, yeah, modern day Rastafarian, you know, sort of dreads. Once again, Keith Richards, you see the guy and he's got these sort of little trinkets just sewn into his hair, you know, hanging. That was one of the inspirations for just all the stuff, you know. I like the idea that each one of these little pieces is a very vivid and extremely important memory for Jack.
there she goes.
It was extraordinary to watch Johnny Depp create that character because he played him like a complete drunken fool. Not that he was drunk, but every time I looked at him on set, I always thought he'd had about 8 vodkas or something, as he could barely get his words out. And he would just casually throw things off, and it was such a cool performance and very masterfully done.
I remember the first day that I was in the full Captain Jack makeup and the wardrobe. You know, I was just sort of seeing the character for the first time. And then Gore came in the room.
It was a kind of ear-to-ear grin, and, you know, he looked at me like, "Are you cool with this?" And I was just, you know, ecstatic.
And he said, "That's it, yeah." You know, he got it immediately. And he knew where I was trying to go with the character. And he got the humor.
You are without doubt the worst pirate I've ever heard of.
But you have heard of me.
Jack is probably the pirate that everyone wants to be. He's freewheeling. He's absolutely his own man. He's like Johnny. He's hilarious and lucky, and just seems to manage to fall from one near disaster to another and manage to come out relatively unscratched because he's also bright.
This dock is off limits to civilians.
I'm terribly sorry, I didn't know. If I see one, I shall inform you immediately.
What it felt like to me was a guy who was miraculously able to run between the raindrops.
Impersonating an officer of the Spanish Royal Navy, impersonating a cleric of the Church of England.
No matter how bad things got, there was always this sort of bizarre optimism, you know, and yeah, maybe denial. And I thought there was something very beautiful and poignant about the idea of his objective. I mean, all he wants is to get his ship back.
But what a ship is, what the Black Pearl really is freedom.
He was a fun character. It's really been a fun character. Bring him to life is my favorite part. Just the fact that I got to play the guy. I actually think my favorite part, and maybe the most revealing and telling part of Jack Sparrow, when he's on the island with Elizabeth and she's burnt all the rum.
No! Not good! Stop! Not good!
Jack Sparrow, who's, perversely a master of words and is, fairly eloquent.
Where's the rum gone?
He's reduced to no, not good, stop, not good. That's probably the most satisfying moment for me. Felt the most, I think it's the most revealing for the character.
That signal is over 1,000 feet high. The entire Royal Navy is out looking for me. Do you really think that there is even the slightest chance that they won't see it?
But why is the rum gone?
Every movie you sort of meander into is a part of your education, and it was trying at times, but we got through it, as gracefully as possible and as dignified as possible. I think ultimately we did well,
One can only hope. Take what you can.
Give nothing back.
I don't think in some areas you had to be very brainy to be a pirate. Unless you're Barbossa, I actually think he is quite smart, and that's probably why he survived. He's a horrible liar, and yet he pretends to be a gentleman of the sea, but he's a dirty old cunning rogue.
I agreed she'd go free, but it was you who failed to specify when or where.
Action!
You sit down to read a blockbuster action pirate movie script with a certain amount of trepidation, because you think, well, it's probably going to be only the romantic version of what that era might have been like. And in some ways it has to be that, because I do want 7-year-olds to be able to come and see it and go, that was cool. And yet at the same time you don't want it to be such a fairy tale that it doesn't kind of mean anything. We want the audience to have to keep making moral decisions. What would I do next? What's honorable to do next, and what's noble to do next?
Action! I really rather hope we were past all this. Jack.
I was already on board pretty much when Jeffrey's name came up, and of course it was something I was very happy to hear, when they brought Jeffrey up for Barbossa. I was even happier when they said he was interested in doing it. I like his work very much. Jeffrey sort of likes to throw things out there and try new things, and so do I. So it was good.
Part of the fun, I think, must have been the notion of brotherhood. If you were a pirate, you became a member of a very non-hierarchical boatload of people. I mean, there was always the captain, but one man, one share, and if they struck gold, then you become very wealthy. That's the romantic side of it. I think the reality might have been really horrible. Loneliness, desperation, complete insanity, and everyone a criminal. Everyone who was a pirate was probably escaping from some horrible crime that they'd committed from anywhere on the planet. That was the key thing I had to answer to myself. How does he remain being the captain? Because I was pretty much one of the oldest pirates on board.
And, okay, well, let's not bother about the blade work. Let's get the rhythm of the jump. Ready, and action.
I thought, this guy has got to be a crack swordsman. and a very nasty one, and that when he pulls his sword out, even big guys cower away.
Barbossa's just the quintessential villain. Geoffrey Rush, he's able to play the kind of and celebrate the two-dimensional aspects of a character like this, yet play the depth all the way through in terms of the kind of needs and wants of this character who ultimately just wants to eat his apple, you know, taste food again.
One of those next.
I put together this story that when he was about 13, he probably ran away to sea, because that was probably the only, he probably came out of a background of poverty. And he would have been on ships where he would have seen very grand cabins and the captain of the ship living in very spacious and elegant quarters. And he thought, that's what I want to be. And he may have had very earnest desires to be a man of the sea, but realized pretty quickly that you could actually get a lot more if you broke the rules and just lied to people and killed a few people and took over.
Agreed.
I love props as an actor, you know. I love defining a character by certain physical objects that they might handle. And on this one, I was given two of the best props you could ever be given. One was my ship.
1:30, take one.
And the first day I worked on that, I just went on and went, this is my ship. You know, it tells you a lot about the character, where he stands and what he controls.
Hands, grapnels at the ready! Prepare to board!
The other one was walking into the soundstage where they'd built this entire massive underground cavern that had a lake in it. I mean, I tend to do lower budget films that don't get that spectacular. So to have that world around you and to see it filled with, you know, 40 or 50 barracking, mean pirates was really thrilling. I suppose if I stand outside it and look at it, I go, well, yes, you're playing the villain. But somehow, from the inside, I was playing the hero, you know, because his dream was that we will lift this curse, I will have a fabulous prize pirate bride, and I will live happily ever after as a very rich rogue. Doesn't work out like that for the villain.
All cameras are ready.
It's kind of fun to blow stuff up.
Let's roll video.
What we live for. Build a beautiful thing and blow it up.
There's a lot of different elements that are going to be happening simultaneously. This is a big shot. Roll all cameras. Here we go, gentlemen. Fire!
This is the Interceptor. It's quarter scale, based on a real ship, the Lady Washington, based in Port Townsend, Washington. We're going to blow this ship up at the end of the show, so it had to be built exactly the way the original was, so that it'll come apart and look right.
It's built like a real boat. It's plank on frame. It's 3/4-inch pine on laminated frames. And we built it the same way you would build a real boat, both quarter scale.
There are little fine bits of sculpture around the stern of the ship, and there's a little lion figurehead on the bow. 3 sail makers. The sails are all carefully researched and built to scale.
So what we have here is a man-made lake that's 230,000 gallons, sitting with a pirate ship in the middle of it.
The ship's mounted on a big rig that puppeteers it kind of the way you would with a marionette.
This setup that we're doing here is establishing shot showing big stormy seas. Typically we do a lot of shooting of little pieces to be assembled into a final shot. In this case, the setup that we're doing is going to be the entire shot.
We've built a tank over here that has 750 gallons in it, and we're going to use that to shoot a giant wave of water that will hit the bow of the boat. We also have some wave makers so that we can get basically about a 1-foot chop at all times within the water.
While this shot is occurring, there's going to be people in the wind makers, and they're going to be agitating the fans and moving the fans around. There's going to be people who are going to turning the rain on and off. There's going to actually be people on the lightning strikes, because there's lightning going off, but you don't want the lightning to look exactly the same every time. Additionally, we have a dolly move that's occurring, and I myself will be operating the camera.
All of this is for what's probably going to be a 5-second shot in the movie.
We started in September, so it's been about 8 months to get to this point.
This is a little like putting a kid up for adoption. It's kind of hard.
There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in that ship, and hate to see it go.
The object is to make the middle of the ship go away, but leave the ends. So that means you gotta kind of focus the explosion. Pretty much every square inch had to be loaded with the explosives. We're using this stuff, primer cord, and it's like string, and you set it in there, you make grooves to set the cord in, and you hold it in place with the clay and then back it. That way the blast kind of cuts it where you want it and leaves what you want to stay.
We've been delaying this, and it's perfect too because the weather just got finally good enough to do this kind of shot right now.
There's only one shot. You can't put it back together and shoot it again. So everybody's on needles and pins today.
It was reminiscent of like a rocket launch.
All right, here we go, gentlemen.
All the cameras set to the right stops.
Scene camera, are you ready?
Ready, 96 frames at 11.
When everybody was up to speed and cameras were running well, then it was, okay, we're okay to fire the pyro, and bang, off it went.
Okay, roll on cameras. Speeding. And here we go. Fire! Okay, keep rolling, keep rolling, keep rolling. Still rolling.
Still rolling! Still rolling! Still rolling!
Good.
Nice job.
Went into a lot of pieces.
Everybody's just thrilled. It's a great shot.
A lot was riding on this going well.
The pyrotechnicians did a wonderful job. They took it apart just the way we would have. We're very happy. A little sad, very happy.
The explosion just completely demolished the whole middle of the ship.
The thing that I was the most happy with was that the mast rolled the right way.
It went very well. It's a big relief because we had no plan B.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Jack.
You're welcome.
Not you. We named the monkey Jack.
This is Levi, and Levi is one of the evil characters.
All on the main brace! Make ready the guns!
Barbossa, who's the evil captain. The monkey sort of plays his greedy id. He's like a little tentacle of Barbossa.
The monkey's actually the smartest person in the film, I think, because it never loses sight of the goal. Everyone else has human frailty and betrayal and jealousy, but the monkey knows we've got to get each and every last medallion back into that case.
Action! One more time, reset.
Primates, they're very intelligent.
No.
They pick things up so quickly.
Point.
For the movie, they have to get used to the people, they have to get used to the lights, the smoke, the character.
And roll camera.
She's not set. Hold on 1 second.
Hold the roll.
The most important thing for a monkey is to feel safe. So the biggest thing that we had to let the monkey realize is that Jeffrey wasn't going to boss them around. He wasn't going to make them do something they didn't want to do.
Go on, go on, go on.
All the scattered pieces of the Aztec gold must be restored, and the blood repaid.
Capuchin monkeys are naturally afraid of being jumped on by prey. So they do that all the time.
They don't act, so it's hard for them to understand when somebody is acting because they think it's real.
Background action! Action! Strike your colors, you bloomin' cockroaches!
The monkey worked always through the trainer because she said, well, if you start yelling, she'll just freak out. So what I'm training her to do is to have no relationship with you whatsoever. In fact, she doesn't care that you exist. So you can do whatever you like. Oh, great, my co-star. Difficult.
I like his work very much. He's kind of a renegade.
And he gets so excited. And he kind of goes into this world of his own where he plays all the characters himself.
For me, that's really important, to find great actors to fill those roles.
I don't think there's anybody that can match him for what he does.
I could feel his little head and I could smell the little monkey breath and you'd hear all this. And then occasionally she'd just start to kind of play with my hair and do a little bit of searching for things in my wig.
There is one way we can end our curse.
The action is usually the easiest. When they have something tangible to do, they know they go from this spot to that spot, they pick that object up, they put it here.
Stay, Tara. Good. Stay. Action.
And the hardest thing, literally, is a monkey sitting for a minute and a half of dialogue. That's probably the hardest thing.
To do dialogue scenes where the monkey has to sit on my shoulder and look as though it's looking at the person that I'm talking to.
And how does a maid come to own a trinket such as that? Family heirloom, perhaps?
Was insane.
I didn't steal it, if that's what you mean.
Very well, you hand it over and we'll put your town to our rudder and ne'er return.
One last resort technique, which was just squirting a little bit of water onto the monkey's vest just before my dialogue. And the monkey would be like, what'd you squirt me for? And then I'd quickly say my lines. And then it'd be like, again. Then it'd be like, psst.
And you'll not lay a hand on those under the protection of parley.
Aye, sir.
No, the monkey was fantastic. She was pretending to be a boy monkey. She was acting. But that's another story.